This is how I made a horror game in 1 week. Most horror games take several months up to years to make, with multiple people working on the project daily. But can I make a quality horror game with good gameplay, a cohesive story, and release the game on itch.io all in the span of 1 week? Watch till the end to find out. The first thing I did was come up with the concept of the game, so I asked my friend the Solo Goldfish to help come up with the story. We eventually came up with Playcade. The game will take place in an abandoned arcade where you play as a lost media archivist looking for a lost arcade machine that's somewhere inside this arcade. An abandoned arcade is the perfect location for a short horror game. Arcades aren't very big, so I won't have to create a huge map, just a couple of rooms. And secondly, making a horror game out of an arcade will bring some children's horror elements into the game, something that is extremely popular nowadays. But don't worry, I won't lean too heavily into the children's horror. After getting the concept of the game down, it's time to actually start making it. First, I looked on the Unreal Engine marketplace to find some asset packs I could use. I found these arcade and pizza place assets that would be perfect for the game, so I fired up Unreal Engine and started to lay out the rooms with box brushes. I found this cool carpet texture online and used that for the floors. Now that the rooms are laid out, I actually need to fill them. Now, I'm not great at level design, so I called over my friend Goose Studios to help with the rest of the development. He detailed all the rooms in the game, including the kitchen, dining area, security office, and way more. We also went in and added these neon lights to really get the feel of a 90s arcade. Once the map was laid out, we could finally get working on the gameplay. The plan was to have a player find a lost arcade machine in the storage room, but he had to turn on the power and find a coin to insert into the machine to actually play the lost game. We put some generators around the map, and the player has to activate each one to turn on the power. This will allow them to actually play the lost arcade machine. These generators are actually from the same asset pack I used in my other game, Basics and Intermediate Filmmaking. Basics and Intermediate Filmmaking is a puzzle horror that you can buy on Steam today, where you navigate a rundown power plant and solve puzzles with your camera, all while avoiding the company mascot, Gassy the Gas Man. Anyway, self-promo out of the way. Once the player finally plays the lost arcade machine, this is when some crazy stuff happens. But before that, we actually have to make the arcade machine. I found this model of an arcade machine on Sketchfab and retextured it a little to fit the style of the game. Then we put the arcade machine in this creepy storage room, and honestly, something about a broken arcade machine in the dark is just so creepy. At this point, there were about 4 days left on the timer, and the game barely had any gameplay, so me and Goose Studios had to get creative. We spent a whole day planning out the story and lore to get the backstory of the game, and eventually coming up with a complete timeline. Once you actually play the lost arcade game, we decided that you'll be taken to one of 3 minigames. Each of these minigames hints at different pieces in the game's story, and the ending is the most shocking of them all. But even before you start the minigames, you're taken to a 2D version of the arcade you were just in, and play as a 2D version of yourself. In this 2D world, you run into the very arcade machine that you're playing on. This is where the different minigames start to happen. Making this 2D world was a little tricky. Unreal Engine is a mostly 3D engine, and very rarely do you see 2D games made in it. So what I had to do was use a plugin on the Unreal Engine marketplace called PaperZD. This plugin lets me make a whole 2D game inside Unreal Engine. So I went to a free pixel art software and made different sprites for the 2D world, including the floor texture, arcade cabinets, and the player. I used the PaperZD plugin to make these into sprite assets that could be placed in the world. The camera is pointed down at the scene, so it gives the illusion of a 2D game. This whole 2D process took a few hours to do, so make sure to like this video and subscribe for all my troubles. Like I said, Goose Studios and I made 3 different minigames after the 2D world. The first game was called Piano Practice. In this game, the player sits at a piano bench with a mysterious note in front of them that says "Death Beneath Fun," but something's off about the room. If you look around, there's a tall, lanky man standing right behind you, breathing heavily. He isn't moving, but he's staring directly at you. So what exactly does the player have to do here? Well, the note on the paper has some letters outlined in red. These letters correspond to the notes on the piano. The player has to play these notes in the correct order to win the game. But if you press the wrong note, the tall figure behind you will get closer and closer. If he ends up getting you, you'll get jump scared and have to restart. The jump scare isn't perfect, but it gets the job done. Before this level even started, we needed a menu to actually introduce the game. So Goose Studios went into DaVinci Resolve and cooked up a looping video of a cool 90s style arcade menu. We exported it into Unreal Engine and made it a widget blueprint with the video playing over and over. We actually did this for each one of the minigame menus. Once you finish the piano level, you're taken back to the arcade where you'll have to collect another coin and play again. Once you start up the game again, the second minigame plays. This one is called Salty Signals. You play on a boat with a radar sensor, and after some time, something will appear on the radar and slowly move closer towards you. You have to spam click E to ward it off and survive until 3 AM, but if it gets to your boat, it's game over. After some playtesting, we thought it was a little too easy, so to make it more difficult, we made the signal become disconnected every few seconds. The player will have to go to the back of the boat and fix the radar scanner, but they can't spam E while doing this. This minigame was probably the trickiest to make. Goose Studios found this boat model to use, and he spent a while getting the lighting and visuals to look good. As he was doing that, I got to work on the blueprints. The blueprints for the radar code got really complicated. I had to randomize the entity's location on the radar, which was just a cylinder that I made glow. After a long day of working on it, I finally got the radar system working, and the blueprints just look like spaghetti now. Also, a side note, I made the boat sway back and forth. It's a little touch, but it looks cool. After you survive until 3, you're taken back to the arcade again, and you'll have to repeat what you did earlier and collect a coin to put in the machine to start the next minigame. This minigame is where things get a little creepy. It's called Gone Missing, and you can probably guess what it's already about just from the name. You play as a little kid who's lying in bed. All you can do is look around. As you sit, you press E to close your eyes, but once you reopen them, something seems off. The window looks a little different, but you can't make out what. After closing your eyes again and reopening them, you can see someone crawling into your room. As you continue to close and open your eyes, the shadowy figure gets closer and closer. Goose Studios made this room layout and lit the scene with a dim spotlight from behind the window. We found this model of some creepy guy and rigged the poses we needed in Blender. After a couple tweaking, we got it working perfectly, and the in-game experience is so horrifying. However, this isn't where the minigame ends. Once you get jump scared, you're taken to a cellar or basement of some kind. After looking around, you spot a ladder with a trapdoor above it, but there's no rungs to climb up it. You have to search the basement and find the different rungs to place on the ladder and escape. After placing them on the ladder and reaching the trapdoor, you're taken back to the arcade, but something's different this time. You hear a strange banging sound coming from one of the rooms. If you want to find out what it is, the link to the game is in the description where you can play it for yourself for free. Yeah, I'm making you play the game to find out the ending. This last level was super easy to make. I literally just laid out the rooms with Unreal Engine box brushes, and Goose Studios filled it with different assets that would fit in a basement. The game was completely playable at this point, but we're not done yet. One thing this game really needed was sound design. For the sound effects and ambience, we went on to freesound.org and took everything we needed that was Creative Commons 0. For music, it was actually super simple. You see, I released a game a while ago called Food Fight, which you can buy on Steam, by the way. But in Food Fight, I made a bunch of 8-bit arcade tracks for different songs in the game. And because I didn't have time to make a whole new soundtrack for Playcade, I used these songs from Food Fight and slowed them down a bit to be a lot more creepy and ambient. I used these songs for some parts of the game, but it didn't exactly fit each section, so I asked my friend the Dreamtaker if he could make any tracks. He sent me a couple ones that were exactly what I was looking for, and his song is actually what you hear in the end credits of the game. After I had the music down, there was only one thing left to do. One thing that almost every indie horror game needs. That's right, hidden lore. I found this radio model that I used for some of my other games and put that in the security office. I then had my friend the Solo Goldfish record some lines to play through an audio tape. While I was at it, I also had the Solo Goldfish record the actual announcer lines for the arcade.
Welcome to the Playcade. Remember to keep the machines clean and safe, and pick up any food or item you leave behind. And don't forget the #1 rule, have fun.
With roughly 1 day left, all Goose Studios and I had to do was release it on itch.io. We got to work designing the page, collecting screenshots, and making the thumbnail, which didn't take long. I exported the project and uploaded it to itch.io, and just as the week was about to end, we released the game. Finally, after 1 week of non-stop grinding, the game is finally available to download. To celebrate, we sent it out to different people we know to see how they like it.
I'm not even scared anymore. I don't hit it. I'll close it again. What?
Playcade is available to download for free on itch.io. I'll leave the link in the description. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and go review it on itch.io and leave a comment down below on how you liked it. If we can get me to 20,000 subscribers, I'll release the full version of Playcade. And if you really want to support me, you can become a member on my Patreon, where you can get access to exclusive content and devlogs. But anyways, that's just a theory. A horror game theory. Thanks for watching.